Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bedinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Denver, Colorado. I'm so glad you could join me today. I have a sympathy card for you today. I needed one, unfortunately, and so I came up with a design. I was watching around a couple of different demonstrators and I was inspired by the card that Connie Stewart was doing, and she said she was inspired by a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator by the name of Gail Ellis. It is using, well, she used craft ink and white embossing powder. I'm doing mine just a tiny bit differently. And so let's just get started and I'll show you how to make this card. Okay, here is my card, and it is done using this free stamp set Corner Bouquet from Sale Abrasion, and I'm using this stamp and I'm using this stamp from there, and then I am using from, here's a card that may your heart find the peace it needs, and for the inside, words can't express the deep sorrow felt on your behalf. But I was thinking about this, and I think this would also make a really nice masculine birthday card. So I have a swap to do with a group, and they want masculine cards, and so I think maybe I'll just use this design and use it for a masculine birthday card as well. Okay, so here we go. Now I am going to change up my colors this time, and I've decided that I'm going to do this same card, but I'm going to do it in the grays. And so I have a Whisper White card base here, 8.5 by 5.5, scored and folded at 4 1/4. Then I have 2 pieces of basic gray, which is the darker gray color here, at 4 by 5 1/4 for layering on the front and the inside of the card. And then my upper layer on the front and the inside is going to be this gray, which is called Smokey Slate. And so I've got that, and I've got my basic gray ink, and that's what I'm using to make this. And so let's just get started here and get moving. So I'm going to do all of my stamping on these 2 pieces here. Now you will need an additional piece of Smokey Slate that's a scrap. I cut out this sentiment to go on the front of here, and then I cut one out to go on the inside, and I'll show you exactly what I did to do that. So the very first thing I'm going to do is lay down my stamps here, and I have my basic gray, and I have the smaller of my corner stamp here, and I'm going to ink that up, and I can see that it is getting some ink along that ledge, and I don't want that. So I'm going to take a second and just wipe off the edge of that stamp and get rid of the ink along that edge. That is not something I want. Okay, so the very first thing I'm going to do is in about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom and the side, I'm going to stamp this in the basic gray pretty much full strength. And I'm pressing down. These are big stamps, so you want to make sure you get a complete stamped image, and there we go. And then I'm going to move the whole thing out about 1/2 inch, and I'm going to stamp it again without re-inking so that I get this lighter looking stamp there. There we go. All right, now I'm going to take my chamois here, and I'm going to clean off this stamp completely, and The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my ink on this card front piece here is completely dry. Oh, you know what? I should have done my inking. As long as I'm at it, I think I will just go ahead and ink up all of these pieces at once. Let's see. This is the one for the inside, and on that one I'm doing something quite similar. I'm putting the darker ink in the corner, and then I'm stamping off and putting the lighter image there. And then I have my little leaf, and that one is stamped on this card in the darker, well, let me put a little piece of scratch paper under there, because I want to stamp this one off the corner here to get it started. And I'm going to stamp that right up here in the corner, and then I'm just going to not ink up and get a couple more images in the lighter gray there. That looks pretty good. And now I'm going to clean off that stamp as well, and then my larger stamp, and we're going to make sure that all of this ink is very dry because I want to emboss over that, and the embossing powder will stick to anything that is slightly moist. So I'm going to quiet the video and make sure that my panels are dry. Now that might feel like a lot of drying time, but it's absolutely essential that that be really bone dry. All right, then I'm going to take my anti-static tool here, and I'm going to get some of that powder there on all three pieces that I am stamping. And then I'm going to ink up this image again, but in Versamark this time. And I'm going to tuck this image way down a little deeper in the corner, because the thing that's so cool about this technique, thank you, Gail, for coming up with this, is that because the white is so stark against the dark, it makes it look 3D. It's really fun. So I'm going to tuck this all the way back in the corner, and I'm going to stamp with my Versamark right down here in the corner on there. Perfect. And then I'm going to do that same thing, but with the leaf pattern on this piece here. So I decided to just use the leaf on the inside of the card on this one, and like that. And then I'm going to also add some white leaves to the top of my card here. So again, in Versamark, and I'm going to bring one down a little ways. Okay, there we go. So next I have my white embossing powder here, and I'm going to put some embossing powder on those images where I have stamped, There we go. Yes, when you don't make sure your ink is dry, you end up with quite a mess in the end. Okay, so there's my white images there, and then I'll have my larger white image down here on the bottom. And there we go. All right. I think I'm really going to like this in the gray. Okay, so now I can, again, quiet the video and use my heat tool and bring up this embossing. Okay, there is my embossing done. And what happened there, you watched me go back and re-put on some glue. When I put my embossing powder, I missed the tip of that leaf and that leaf. And so I went back and was fortunate. I put some embossing powder and it stuck down and I was able to complete that image. So that's what I was doing there. All right, so there we go. That stamping is all done. Now, I have my piece of scrap here that is the Smokey Slate, and I have my 2 stamps that I want to do in the basic gray. And the first of them is this one that says, "May your heart find the peace that it needs." And I'm going to stamp that one right there. And then I'm going to stamp this one. I had a devil of a time getting these straight, so I decided that putting them on separate die cuts was probably a smart thing for me to do. There we go. See, I'm having a hard time stamping that one straight. Okay, so there we go. I've got those 2 pieces. And I've got my 2 dies, and that one is a simple process of getting that die processed that way. This one is a little different. Well, maybe there is. Let me look in my... that doesn't work as well. Okay, so on this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up to cut, but I'm only going to let it cut down to here. So I'm going to, and I'll show you the way I'm going to set it up on my machine so you understand how this works. This other one is a very straightforward, just get this centered here and run it through my die machine. Now this one is a little bit different, and I'll show you how I'm going to set that up on my machine. So what I'm going to do is set this one up on my die machine, and I'll show you the sandwich, so that this is the die that is wide enough to cover my words, but it's way too long, so I'm going to shorten it up. So what I'm going to do is set that one up so that it sits on there just the way I want, and I'm going to put that on there so that it would cut straight, and then I'm just going to take this right along this edge, and I'm going to put that edge right on the edge of my machine here. And I'm going to take a little ruler, because what I want is I want that to stop cutting right about there. So I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to just draw a little bit of a line so that when I set this up on my machine, I can set it up so that it stops cutting right on that line. Then I will put this, I have to put a cutting plate underneath it. I'm going to set up my sandwich like this, and then I'm going to use that ruler across where I want that to stop cutting, and I'm going to set that die up so that it is right on the edge of my cutting plate so that it'll stop cutting right there. Then once I know that that's in the right place, I can add my top cutting plate, and I'll show you what happens when you do this. Okay, so now I have cut my sentiment right along that edge, and you'll see that it just stopped cutting right where I wanted it to. So now I will remove the die, and I will replace it on my sentiment, coming back this way, and you can feel when the teeth fit into the stitch marks that are already there. And I'm going to set that up so that it will cut, and now I'm going to cut this edge. So I'm going to do that, and what you can do is make your dies cut whatever size you want by doing that. Meanwhile, my other sentiment went ahead and cut through, so I can take that one off, and we'll do that in a second. And I'm going to run this back through my machine now, and I'll be right back. So here is my piece. Now cut exactly the size that I want it, because I've already cut this other piece off. So be very careful taking my tape off. And that sentiment is all ready to go. And there I've got a sentiment on a piece of card. Now the only thing I have to do is just take off my pencil mark. And there my sentiment just now fits in the square that I've cut. All right, so then this sentiment is also cut and ready to go. And the only thing I did a little bit differently with these sentiments, and let me just get my tape off there. Patience is the key here. Just peel it off very, very carefully until it all comes off so it doesn't tear your paper. All right, so now if you happen to have a square that works just perfectly for that, then you're luckier than me. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take my basic gray ink and go around the edges of my sentiment here and just darken that a little bit so that it is got some contrast with the card front. Okay, and before I put my sentiments on my cards, I have one other small bit of stamping. I have this splatter pattern, and this splatter pattern came from Forever Fern, and it's this splatter pattern here. And I like that one. I use it a lot. And what I have is I wanted to add a little texture to the back of this card. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp off once, and then I'm just going to add some of these splatters here. And this one I think I got a little carried away, so I'm just going to add it around my stamped images on this one. And I think that just adds a little bit of texture and interest on this card. Isn't that pretty? I just love the way this looks. And like I said, I think that that is okay for a masculine card. I think the colors take it down that road. Oh, as long as I'm doing splatters, I better do this one while I'm at it. Okay, so again, I'm going to stamp off, and then I'm just going to do some splatters around my image. And then up here in the corner, I'm doing some splatters up here where I'm going to put my image, and so that those splatters will show on the outside of that image. Okay, there we go. Now this card, I think, is just about ready to be put together. So I have this piece for the inside, and I did decide to put this piece up on dimensionals. Okay, and there I'm going to set my image, my sentiment, right down there. Make sure that it is straight, and I think it is. And then this image, I'm just going to add some seal onto the back of it. And put it in place right here in this corner. And again, lay it down gently until I'm sure that it is straight. Now I think those are ready to go on my card base. And you might wonder about why I chose the white card base instead of, oh, in this case I could have done very vanilla. And that's because I was doing the embossing in white, and I thought it would look peculiar to have very vanilla, although normally that would be my choice for the one of the neutrals behind this. So these pieces now need to go on their basic gray layering pieces. Oh my gosh, I think that is so pretty. And then I'm going to add that piece to the front of my card. There we go. And then this piece will go on this piece of basic gray. And then this piece on the inside of our card. Now, when Connie did her card, she didn't use Versamark. She used white craft ink and then put her embossing powder in. I don't know. That might make this a little brighter white. I'm not sure. I didn't do it that way, but I thought this was just lovely the way it came out. All right, there we go. Now, for bells and whistles here, I have pulled out these. They are the Elegant Faceted Gems, and these are clear. These have kind of a pink cast to them, but these have an kind of a white frosted look, and I kind of like the idea of the white. So I have taken these little, oh gosh, where's my pick tool? And set these white pieces down, and I just think they set this off so beautifully. And I'm adding a little bit of this white embellishment. I thought these did a particularly good job of offsetting the card here without being too sparkly. After all, this is a sympathy card. Maybe one more. But oops, I only thought I picked it up. I thought those came out so pretty, and you could use pearls. Pearls would work here too, but I thought that that just made such a lovely card. So there is my card, the two ones, and I'll have to say that I think I do like the gray one better. There's something very soothing and calming about that gray, and I think the sentiments on that are great, and I love this stamping technique. I will use that again and again. Thank you, Gail and Connie, for coming up with this wonderful methodology here, and this is my take on it. So thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel today. I do so appreciate it. And if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, well, I'd love to be your demonstrator, or you could join my team. Joining is especially good right now. We've got through Celebration, so not as long as we might have had in the past, because Celebration is only January and February this year, but it will be back. So we'll have another Celebration time later in the year, right after the new catalog comes out in June. So I think that's July and August that happens. I'm not positive. But right now there's a join offer that gives you 5 packages of designer series paper, one for each of the color families and one for the 2021-22 in colors. And so that's normally $11.50 a piece. That's a lot of paper. So 5 packages of designer series paper plus your $125 worth of product for $99, a very good deal. So if you're curious at all, give me a call. My information is always listed below the video. You'll have to tell me which of these you like better. I think I'm kind of partial to the gray, but let me know what you think. So that's it for me. Let's see, it's January, and my prize for the month is a bundle of your choice out of the January to June mini catalog, and you get yourself in the drawing by putting an order of any size on my store, lbedinger.stampinup.net, and you can get to it through my blog, www.inkandingenuity.com. I just posted today on my blog card making for beginners. And I'm going to do a whole series. I hear from many of you that you're new to this, and so I thought it would be good to put a post up that goes over the basics. And so if you get a chance, check out my blog, again, www.inkandingenuity.com, and there's a post up today. It's a good review also for those of us that have been doing stamping for a while. I'm going to cover things like this. This time I did cutting and scoring and paper weights and that kind of thing. Next time I'm going to be doing tools. I'll be doing the basics of all different kinds of things over time. And so there will be those tips that are on there on my blog. So thanks again for stopping by, and I'll be back soon with more cards, more tips, and more projects. Bye!